Here I'm asked to graph two log functions here. I'm going to make sure that we have an asymptote and two reference points to give us kind of the general shape of our graph here. But the first thing I want to do here, I like to make an x and y table on this, and I'll actually do the math below here. But basically the first thing is I should know that I cannot take the log of 0 because 2 to the power of nothing would get me 0. Like I can't do 2 to the power of 2 or 2 to the power of 0 or 2 to the power of a negative number. 2 to the power of x equals 0, like there's no number I could plug in here. So what's important to know is that kind of will help us find the vertical asymptote. So if I plug in the x value of 3, that would make the inside of the log 0, which we cannot do, which is why that tells me the x value of my vertical asymptote. So I find that, and I'm going to go ahead and show that on my graph here. The second thing we need to know is that if I were going to take log base 2 of 1, I know that 2 to the power of 0 is 1. So that's going to make my math nice and simple here. So the next x value that I choose is the x value that will make the inside of the log 1. Because now when I plug this in, when I'm looking for the y value, I have 3 times log base 2 of 4 minus 3, which is 1, minus 4. And like I just said, any log base of 1 is going to be 0. So 3 times 0 minus 4 ends up just giving us negative 4. The last thing we need to make sure we understand is that anytime that the log base matches the inside of the log, I get 1. So if I do log base 2 of 2, I know 2 to the power of 1 is 2. So that's going to make our math nice and simple. So the last x value that I choose is what makes the inside of the log match the base. So I'm choosing 5 because 5 minus 3 is 2. Then when I'm solving for my y value, I have 3 times log base 2 of 5 minus 3, which is 2, minus 4. Now I go ahead and do this math. As I said before, this is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Oops. And 3 minus 4 is negative 1. So now when I plot these points for negative 4, 5, negative 1, that gives me my general shape of my log function that should look like this. So let's put that into practice. I'm going to go a little quicker on this one here, but the x and y table, I first want to plug in the x value that makes the inside of the log 0. So that's negative 6. Anytime that I make the inside of the log 0, that's what represents my vertical asymptote. So I also can't take the log of a negative number. So if I plugged in negative 7 or negative 8 into here, I'd also not be able to solve it. So then the next thing I want to do is plug in the x value that makes the inside 1. So I'm going to plug in negative 5. When I do this math, y equals 4 times log base 3 of 1 plus 6. This whole thing is 0. So I get my y value of 6. The last x value I choose is whatever's going to match that base. So I'm going to plug in negative 3 so that I get the inside of the log to be equal to 3. Ooh, almost forgot, is that my first number here is negative 4. So negative 4 times log base 3 of 3 plus 6. I know this is 1. So y equals negative 4 times 1 plus 6. And then my y value is going to be 2. So now when I plot these here, I got negative 5, what is that, 6, and negative 3, 2. And it makes sense that this is going down because my a value is, sorry, that's a little wonky here. My a value is negative, so it makes sense that this is pointing in this direction. So really what's important is choosing the right X values to graph and then making sure to simplify your mathematics and plot your vertical asymptote and two reference points.